Around the year 500 AD, Benedict of Nursia, the son of a Roman nobleman, abandoned his studies and left home to escape the life of the city. Some 40 miles from Rome, he would be persuaded by a monk of Subiaco to live 3 years of his life as a hermit within a cave in the mountains, to search for God in the truths of human existence. Before his death in 547, Benedict would establish 13 monasteries in Italy and write his influential Rule of Benedict, which would prove to give birth to Western Christian monasticism. Some 1,300 years later, in 1846, Father Boniface Wimmer and a band of 18 young Benedictines from Bavaria's Metten Abbey traveled by steamship to Ellis Island. Later that same year, Father Wimmer and his companions founded the first Benedictine monastery in the United States at the rural St. Vincent's Parish in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Father Demetrius D. Morogna and 4 fellow Benedictines left St. Vincent's and traveled west to Minnesota to provide for the spiritual and educational needs of German immigrants. In 1856, they arrived in central Minnesota and built the first Benedictine monastery in the state, the St. Cloud Priory, on the beautiful western bank of the Mississippi River. Seeking a more wooded setting, the Benedictines moved west of St. Cloud. Their Benedictine sisters helped to establish the town of St. Joseph and St. Benedict's Convent. The monks traveled further west to Lake Sagatagan, and in 1866 built what would be known as the Old Stone House, their first of many architectural endeavors, and the birthplace of St. John's Abbey. Abbot Rupert Seidenbusch served as the first abbot of St. John's from 1866 to 1875. Under the leadership of Abbot Alexius Edelbrock, St. John's would build what would become the heart of the St. John's campus, the Abbey Church and Quadrangle. Using lumber cut from the St. John's forests and bricks made at the monastery from local clays, the building would prove to be the largest educational building west of Chicago, an unbelievable sight in the wilderness of central Minnesota. Following St. Benedict's rules of prayer and work, the monks and sisters of St. John's and St. Benedict's would build up their monasteries and reach out to the immigrants and native people in the area, establishing churches, schools, convents, and hospitals in rural areas of Minnesota and the Dakotas. From this key role the Benedictines played in the early development of the state of Minnesota, to the more recent histories of Benedictines leading worldwide liturgical thinking, and Johnnies carrying on the Benedictine traditions and leading in their communities. In more than 150 years of work and prayer in Minnesota and around the world, Benedictines and alumni of St. John's have written a rich and endearing history. But how does a visitor to St. John's truly learn this history? The story of this place, the ideas behind this incredible place, the great people of this place whose legacies continue to influence the community and the world. Even if a visitor to St. John's is led by an astute and extraordinarily well-read guide, they will likely depart the campus impressed, but missing quite a bit of the stories of this place. Those stories of the traditions of St. Benedict, the efforts of the early Benedictines, the reach of the teaching and ideas of the Order of St. Benedict, the rich history of academics, architecture, arts, and sport at St. John's, the significant influence individuals from the St. John's community have had on the rest of the world, the ideas of sustainability and stewardship on which the place is built, and the enduring strength of the St. John's Alumni Network. These are not easy or quick stories to tell. While the almost museum-like campus of St. John's is seemingly bursting at the seams with history, the campus is largely void of any physical telling of these stories. But they are stories that should be told, and told on campus, visible to all visitors, as a welcome, in the hospitable tradition of Benedict's rule. This story needs to be told so that others who do not or did not live the St. John's story can understand that human story that is embodied here when they visit this great place. The first visit to St. John's is perhaps the biggest opportunity to introduce to prospective students, their parents, and other ambassadors to St. John's the rich and powerful history of this place. For returning alumni, visits to St. John's are a unique opportunity to re-engage and re-energize relationships with the community. The St. John's campus itself and the stories behind it are an opportunity to build community and to create a competitive advantage that will aid the long-term sustainability of St. John's. With the full support of the St. John's University Offices of Admissions and Institutional Advancement, the St. John's Alumni Association Board has recommended to the Abbey Design Committee that St. John's create, in the wise design sense St. John's is known for, a storytelling system that extends a Benedictine welcome to our visitors, providing wayfinding and history-finding information that communicates more explicitly the heritage and culture of St. John's, the Abbey, St. John's University, and the St. John's Alumni Network. How exactly would this be done? First, a series of durable yet enlightening history markers at key sites indoors and out across campus would identify buildings by name, provide history of the structures and the people behind the names. These markers would inform, allow a deeper sense of place, and pay respects to key individuals who have played a role in the St. John's story. Next, a series of outdoor wayfinding and story-finding kiosks would greet and guide visitors through campus, its history, and the ideas on which it's built. In materials and design fitting the St. John's community, these kiosks could provide wayfinding maps, tell a history of specific sites on campus, identify key alumni, and provide for visitors Benedictine ideas and reflections they may take with them on their journeys. On the walls of the main hallway of Sexton Commons, a collection of museum-quality displays would provide both a striking and informational tour through the history of St. John's, all the way from Benedict's first days in the mountains of Italy to efforts of Benedictines in central Minnesota in the last 150 years. Visitors, alumni, prospective and current students, faculty, and staff alike would all be invited to make a deeper connection with this place and be inspired by its heritage. In tribute to the enduring power of the St. John's experience, the Fireplace Lounge in Sexton Commons would be renamed the Alumni Lounge and serve as a gathering point and meeting location for alumni and students alike, and feature in images and interactive displays the history, reach, accomplishments, and initiatives of the worldwide Johnny Alumni Network, the cornerstones and mission of the Alumni Association, alumni award winners, the Board of Regents, current alumni initiatives, and upcoming alumni events will all have a visible and tangible home on campus in a high-traffic, high-visibility central location. While St. John's University continues to be a strong competitor in the marketplace, the quest for qualified students is increasingly more difficult given the declining pool of eligible applicants and challenging economic conditions. Support for the St. John's Annual Fund and capital campaigns are strong, but these efforts are increasingly more challenging due to cutbacks in personal and organizational giving. Reaching alumni that are not already engaged with St. John's is a key to its sustainability. A snapshot of the region's higher education marketplace reveals competitors who are increasingly more forward in telling their story, both in marketing efforts and on their campuses. Many of our neighbor private and state-funded competitors have developed or are developing facilities and stages on which their unique stories can be told to their audiences, to their visitors. The campus visit is of vital importance in making a lasting impression with prospective students and their parents. By simply telling our story on campus, we create a warm welcome and deeper sense of place for all visitors. We create a powerful recruiting tool for admissions. We provide effective support for resource development. And we create a deeper sense of belonging to past, present, and future Johnnies and all in the St. John's community. All these things can be realized by simply telling our stories of St. John's, as Johnnies have been doing for more than 150 years. Help us maximize the potential of the St. John's campus visit by illuminating the history, heritage, and ideas of this great community. Help us tell the stories of St. John's. Please support this important initiative today.